In today's video, I'm going to be showing you a Christmas cookie making nail. So there is a bowl that has some Christmas cookie dough being mixed in it with a wooden spoon. There's cookie cutters and a piping bag filled with red frosting and some cookies that are done that are being frosted, and a whisk. And honestly, the whisk is my favorite part of this whole nail. It is just so cute and it is so realistic looking. I made it with wire and it actually went together pretty easily. I hope you guys like this design as much as I do. Making Christmas cookies is one of my favorite parts of the holidays, and so this design is one of those that I absolutely love. So I hope you guys like it, and I'll see you next time. Bye!
So we are going to begin with a neutral background. I'm just going to go through with white acrylic, and this is a bright white acrylic versus a lot of times you hear me say in my videos I like to do a softer white or a semi-sheer white or a glittery white or something that isn't as stark, I suppose. This time I decided to go with that really bright white. There's something about Christmas that just makes me want to go with a bright white instead of an off-white color. So that was my logic behind this decision. Of course, you could do whatever you would like. I would not do a cover pink as the cookie dough has a new tone to it. So I would maybe do something that would definitely show off your cookie dough. I'm going to file that nail into shape, and then inside a little dome mold. So if you want to see a video on how I made this mold, I can put a link to that in the description box below. It is a 40 Cinderella carriage, so that's the video you're looking for, but it shows how to make the mold in that video. We're going to go through and we're going to be making the bottom of our bowl. So a normal mixing bowl is round on the bottom and then it has tall sides. So we're not going to necessarily take our little bowl base all the way up the side of the dome. We're going to just leave it kind of in the bottom part of it. Once that is cured, you can pop it out. And then on a straw, a nice big large straw, either like a smoothie straw or a milkshake straw, or the one I have is a boba straw, you're going to be sculpting the top portion of the bowl. So the part that goes up the sides. And you can make this as big or as small as you want it to be. You just want to, when you're picking out a straw, try to pick one that the circumference of the straw about matches the amount of space you have on your dome or your little curved portion of the bottom of the bowl. If you look at the size of it around, you want it to match up at least fairly well. Once that has cured, you're going to go ahead and slide it off that straw, and then you can hold it up to make sure it fits. If there's any bits that don't fit, if the bottom part of your bowl piece is just a little big, I'm actually going to use a scissors to cut it. The acrylic monomer that I'm using for this particular part of this design is Koopa's. It's their triptych powder, and it does not cure totally firm. It's made for 3D. It's not necessarily made for strength. And with that in mind, it just doesn't have the strength, which sometimes is okay. In that particular circumstance, I could just snip it with a scissors, which made it really easy to adjust the size, but you can't file it so much. It just doesn't like to file it like, normal acrylic would. And I found that with multiple of the Koopa triptych powders, which is part of the reason why they aren't on my favorites list, but some of those colors are so pretty. Like this green is just so, so pretty. And so I use them anyway. But we're going to go through, and after the top of the bowl is glued to the bottom bowl, take some more of whatever color acrylic you're using for your bowl, and you're going to be smoothing out the transition from top to bottom. If it looks pretty much perfect, it won't take much acrylic. If it's a little bit, there's a significant difference, it may take a little more acrylic and potentially a little more filing at the end. Don't worry too much if it doesn't look perfect on the inside of the bowl, because we are going to be adding all of our different mix-ins and our flour and our butter and our sugar and whatever it is that you're going to be using for colors on your dough on the inside. I'm going to go through and very carefully file this. It's still not very firm, so I had my finger on the inside of the bowl to make sure that it didn't bend or break while I was filing it. Now I'm going to take more of that same color and I'm going to add a rim on the bowl. This is optional. There's so many different bowl styles. My personal favorite mixing bowls all have a spout on them. And if I was feeling extra ambitious, I may have sculpted in a spout on this one, just because I know that that's something I always look for when it comes to a mixing bowl, is if it has a pouring spout. But this one does not, and that is just fine. When you don't need it for cookie dough anyway, that's more important for things like, I don't know. I use them a lot for soup. Like if I have a bunch of leftover soup, I stick them in a mixing bowl instead of a different container. That's really side information that sometimes I just say these things. Anywho, we're going to go through, add that rim going all the way around. Don't try to rush this process. Take your time. Take it nice and slow. Do little bits by little bits. You'll have much better success than trying to place down a huge bead and stretch it around. So now going back to our nail form backing, using a color that is somewhat neutral, we're going to be sculpting our wooden spoon. Now, if you aren't a wooden spoon person, then you could do a metal spoon. You could use silver for a metal spoon instead, or, whatever kind of spoon you prefer if you want to keep it as realistic to your cooking style as possible. So I do love wooden spoons. I am a sucker for a good wooden spoon. So I'm going to use kind of a kind of a neutral goldish tone color. It's not like a super like a 24 karat gold, but it's more of a like a brownish bronze-ish gold. That's a hard word. That isn't a word to say. After you have your spoon sculpted on one side, you're going to let that cure, then flip it over, and you're going to add a second layer to the entire spoon to the back side so that it is nice and rounded on all sides. And now we're going to make our whisk, which you guys, super easy, so exciting. Cut off enough pieces of your wire. I used 5, I believe, and then bend them into a teardrop shape. Use something like a straw or a pin to get a nice curve on the one side. If you're using a fine jewelry wire, it should bend super easy, where this part is so simple and so quick to do that it is not a tedious task whatsoever. So bend all of your pieces and then grab them all. I know it shows having 4, and maybe I did only use 4. For some reason I was thinking I did 5. But then leave those to the side for a moment, and you're going to be sculpting the base of your whisk handle. So you have to keep in mind how much space you need at the place where the little pieces of wire are going to be glued in. So then after you have that base done, flip it over and then glue your first piece of the whisk wire down. Once that first piece is glued down, wiggle another piece around it and then glue the second one down so that it kind of is at a slightly different angle as the first one, but at about the same level. So if you think about it like there's a line drawn through the middle, and they all have to remain halfway on each side of the line. They have to keep kind of that straightness going to them, but just turned on the 45 degrees. So I did only do 4, and you're just going to do the next one, slide another one around, hold that in place, and just keep adding these different pieces of the whisk until all of them that you've made and all of them that you feel like you need are on there. If you need to, when you get towards the end ones, to get it to go around the pieces you've already done, as you saw, I just opened up my little teardrop shape to create a bit more space at the base so that I could easily string it around all of those other ones. Bear in mind, at this point, this is very delicate. You just got all those little pieces of wire glued in place. So before you do anything else, without further hesitation, take some clear acrylic and secure all those ends of the wire down so that if you drop this or it falls or whatever happens, because trust me, something will happen. It is not going to be that big of a deal because your little pieces of wire are going to be secured. Not that gluing them in place was a horrible experience. It actually worked out better than I was kind of expecting it to. It's just one of those things you don't want to have to do it twice. So make sure that you secure it as soon as you possibly can. And then after you have that done with more of whatever your whisk handle color is, for me it's that same green, go through and round out the handle so that it looks nice and uniform from all sides. And now we get to start doing our piping bag. So on just a silicone mat, I'm going to be painting a rectangle or a square of some gel top coat. I recommend using Madame Glam's No Wipe top coat for this. Once that has been cured, peel it off. You should be left with a clear material, and you're going to cut a nice triangle out of it. Leave a little bit of a space at the bottom so it's not actually a triangle, it's more of a trapezoid. But then once you have that done, you're going to roll it in on itself so that it is closed on the bottom and then closed all the way up that side so that you have a cone shape. Again, not a tight point on the end. You want it to be open just a little bit, but you still want to have that essentially cone shape going on. So take this and very carefully glue it together on that seamed side. Use a tweezers or something to help you. It is extraordinarily tedious. Nail glue does not love to stick to shiny gel top coat. And so one side of this, the side that was down on your silicone mat, is not shiny. So that side it's happy to stick to, but the other side is very shiny and it is not so keen to stick to that. If you wanted to, you could try to just buff the side that's going to be glued down to remove some of that shine. May make this process easier. It may just make everything more difficult because it's another step, and then you got to deal with removing the dust and worry about, buffing it too thin where it's going to break. It's a balance. I decided not to and just hold it till the glue sticks. It is a process, but once it is glued down, you don't have to worry about it opening later because we're going to fill this with acrylic or frosting. Everybody, it's frosting. It's not acrylic. Don't mind me. But we're going to fill it, and that filling is going to hold this together. So it's not a long-term concern with the nail glue. It's a short-term concern, but you do need to make sure that it is attached for a temporary amount of time. Take whatever color frosting you want and you're going to fill your piping bag. Make sure that you push it down into the tip of the piping bag. You are going to probably get your acrylic brush very icky during that pushing it down phase. And if that's the case, mine did, clean it immediately clean it. Go through, wipe off as much of that acrylic as you can. Dip your brush in your monomer, wipe it again, dip it, dip, wipe until you no longer see the pigment coming out of your brush. Use a clean place on your paper towel or your disposable towel every single time you wipe it after that, and you should not have any brush problems. This is a process that, like I said, my brush got very gunky just by pushing it down into the tip of the piping bag. If that happens, just make sure you thoroughly clean. It's one of those things that, it's especially if you're new to acrylic and you've ruined a few brushes before, because everybody does it. You're going to have one of those, oh no, moments because your brush looks a little less good than it should. But if you just make sure, like I said, dip and wipe until you see no pigment, then you should be fine. And for me, since I did do red frosting, that pigment is persistent. So it did take maybe 6 dip wiping repetitions to make sure that it had all of that acrylic out. And it's actually kind of a good thing to have an acrylic like the red one that is ultra pigmented and prone to leaving a staining in your brush, because then you know that by the time all that pigment's gone, all the little acrylic particles are going to be gone too, and your brush will not get glued together. Once you have the piping tip sculpted with some silver and some white, I'm going to go through and I'm going to pinch the end of the piping bag around the other side of the frosting closed and then glue that down. Now on a smaller straw than the one that you used for your bowl, a significantly smaller straw, you're going to sculpt a silver circle. Now I just wanted to make a circular cookie cutter because I figured that would be significantly easier than trying to make any other shape cookie cutter. If you were to try to make another shape, good luck, basically, is what I have to say. So we're going to do a circle. Keep it easy, keep it simple. Now on a nail form backing, I'm going to be pressing out just some cookie dough colored acrylic into a really flat bit. Then I'm going to dip the same size straw as what I sculpted my cookie cutter with into some of the same color acrylic, that same beige acrylic, and cut 2 cookies out of my cookie dough with the straw. So the straw actually ends up being our cookie cutter. And then you're going to pick up your cookie dough and you're going to lay it across the tip of the nail. Then you're going to use acrylic or nail glue to glue all of the pieces of your cookie making project onto the nail. So we've got the bowl, except for the spoon. Leave the wooden spoon out of it for right now. So we've got the bowl, you got the whisk, you've got those 2 cookies. Don't just waste those cookies you cut out. You want to make sure that you use those and save those. So we're going to grab those 2 cookies and we're going to glue those in place as well. When you are placing the cookies down, try to keep in mind that I guess not just the cookies, but everything. When you're placing everything down, either lay things out in advance before you start gluing them down so you have kind of an idea in your head of where everything is going to go, or just very cautiously work on it so that you don't end up running out of space for an important part that you made and then don't have space to use. For instance, if all of a sudden you had everything glued down but the whisk and you thought, oh no, I don't have space for my whisk. That would be very upsetting, especially for me, since, like I said a bunch of times now, that whisk is like the creme de la creme of this design. So on the 2 cookies that are baked, you're going to want to take a golden color or a brown color, and you're going to want to give them a little bit more depth, like they have just started to brown in the oven. And then with whatever color you used as your frosting color in your piping bag, frost one of the cookies and then take some more of that frosting and create just a little swirly swipe of it across the cookie that is currently being frosted. So we've got that nice little, like I said, a swirly swipe, however you want to do it. Whenever I frost cookies or anything, I guess, if it's in a piping bag, I usually do it in a circular motion. So a zigzag isn't typically my style, but you know what? It seemed like a good plan for the design. So that's how we're doing it. Then I'm going to press the tip of the piping bag into that wet frosting on the cookie and hold it in place until that acrylic is all set up so that the piping bag is going to stay kind of, just sort of floating up in midair. If you want to take some clear acrylic and add a little more reinforcement around the place where the cookie attaches to the piping bag, that would probably be a wise plan. Now you're going to grab some different colors of acrylic that seem like cookie dough ingredients. I have a yellow, I have a white, and I have a tan. And I'm going to gently stir those with my wooden spoon and then hold my wooden spoon in place until the acrylics start to set up. You can actually watch in the video the glossiness of the acrylic slowly fade away. Once it is strong enough where it's going to hold itself in place, you can let go, and then we can add any other remaining details that we feel necessary with some acrylic paint. It really at this point shouldn't be too much. It's kind of up to your discretion. I did ever so slight amounts of outlining, just a little bit of shading, mostly around the cookie dough to give it a little more life. I just felt like it didn't show up quite as much as I would hope it would, and I want it to be a little bit more vibrant, so I'm going to do some outlines around both the cookie dough and the cookies, just a little bit on the piping bag. Basically, like I said, anything that you feel is necessary. Don't feel obligated to overdo it. The one thing that I did do that was a little bit extra, you could say, is I added a pattern to my mixing bowl. So I wanted it to stay kind of Christmassy, so I began with a row of X's with white paint going around just kind of the middle of the bowl, trying to keep them about the same distance apart from each other and about the same size, going all the way around. Then I'm going to switch to some red paint and add just some little polka dots with a dotting tool between those X's. Not super Christmassy or over the top Christmassy. It's not holly or little Christmas trees or Santa Clauses, but something just a bit festive with the white and the red. Once you're done with that, you can apply gel sealer to the background and then selectively apply it to other things that may need it. So things that you may consider applying gel sealer to could be the cookie cutter. It could be your cookie dough. Something in that cookie dough could be wet and white or wet and shiny looking. Especially the yellow, which to me was kind of like an egg, but anything in there that you feel like needs to look extra shiny, definitely apply some top coat to. And the frosting. The frosting I feel like really needs to have a shine to look like it's been freshly piped. And then in the cookie that is finished, I'm going to take some green Hexagon glitters and apply them like sprinkles. You can adjust them with a dotting tool. And then after that gel sealer has been cured, you can go through and apply some matte top coat that is lacquer just to the parts that have acrylic paint on them that need it. So that's, to me, is just the outside of my bowl. And that is it. It's done. This nail is so adorably cute. It looks like little dollhouse equipment. And if you are somebody that likes making miniatures and are making things for a dollhouse, this would be the cutest little set to work on. So I hope you love it as much as I do, and I will see you all next time. Bye!